Hello everyone, my name is Daryl Carl. Tonight we begin from the ports because the Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia says government has now instituted a mandatory joint inspection and paperless system at the various ports by the 1st of September this year. He said the system made up of credible process flow that incorporate a risk control mechanism will facilitate the speedy paperless processing of all port documents. Addressing stakeholders at the Flagstaff House in Accra, Dr. Bawumia cautioned all non-compliant agencies and individuals to be sanctioned appropriately.
Agencies and stakeholders presented paperless process flows which we have merged into a process flow that will enable compliant importers to really sit in the comfort of their offices or homes and get customs clearance. Terminals which are not ready for automation by 1st September will be left behind, and people who do not comply.
And Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia says government has now instituted a mandatory joint inspection and paperless system at the various ports by the 1st of September this year. He said the system made up of credible process flow that incorporate a risk control mechanism will facilitate the speedy paperless processing of all port documents. Addressing stakeholders at the Flagstaff House in Accra, Dr. Bawumia cautioned all non-compliant agencies and individuals to be sanctioned appropriately.
Agencies and stakeholders presented paperless process flows which we have merged into a process flow that will enable compliant importers to really sit in the comfort of their offices or homes and get customs clearance. Terminals which are not ready for automation by 1st September will be left behind, and people who do not comply will be sanctioned. Every activity by importers will be fed into the risk engine as we build risk profiles for importers and exporters. So what are the highlights of this new process flow that we are talking about? Starting with pre-clearance. First, all entities will be registered electronically on a shared platform on the customs pre-arrival system in accordance with existing regulations. So all entities will be registered electronically. Validation will be made with the TIN database and the National Identification System when it is rolled out. 2, all products requiring registration with regulatory agencies will be registered electronically in a shared platform on the customs pre-arrival system in accordance with existing agency regulations. 3, traders will obtain required licenses, permits and certificates pre-arrival of goods via the EMDA platform. These licenses, permits and certificates will be mandatory for the issuance of a customs classification valuation report, the CCVR. Copies will be seamlessly transferred from the EMDA platform to the pre-arrival platform.
The Vice President also said all payments at the ports will now be conducted electronically via all banks instead of the existing situation where payments are only made through only to commercial banks. He noted payments could also be done through the mobile money platforms.
Payment of duties and fees may be made electronically via existing modes of payment or on Ghana's trading hub, which accepts mobile money, Visa cards, GX-Link cards, online and branch payments. Fees and duties payment will be made electronically with duty payments made available via all banks in addition to EcoBank and GCB. Right now, that limitation to just 2 banks will go away, and we will allow all banks to be able to receive and make payments. A national risk clearance system will be introduced to include pre-clearance, clearance, and post-clearance processes fed by data from all systems. This new risk clearance system will form the backbone of all trading activities to enable us to release compliant goods within hours with the effective management of non-compliant transactions.
You're watching Business Live. We are moving on now because the Audit Service has been in the news today. The Ghana Audit Service has issued a certificate of indebtedness to 4 individuals for their involvement in causing financial loss to Ghana. At a press briefing in Accra, the Auditor General, Daniel Domeluvo, said 7 other individuals will soon be served. He vowed all individuals, public or private, will not be spared as his office goes after corrupt individuals.
What do you define as corrupt cases? Many times when you pick our report, the audit report, it normally talks about irregularities. And that is what I hope many people think is corruption. When we talk about irregularities here, some of the irregularities are procedural. It does not occasion any economic loss to the state. Let me give you an example. Let's assume we go to Ministry A and they bought computer using the procurement process. They advertised, they did everything according to the procurement law. They received the computer and straight into the secretary's desk, and it is being used. We will fault them for not using the right procedure of getting it received by the stores and it being issued. That's the procedure. It must be received into custody of the stores and then issued out according to the guidelines, the store's guidelines. So we will say that there is an infraction here. But that infraction does not occasion any loss to the state. So it is an administrative procedure to say that follow the procedure that was not followed in the past. So you may see it listed among the irregularities, but there is no need for certificate over there.
In other news, Chief Executive of Apollonia, a real estate development company, has called for well-structured companies to take up large-scale construction projects in the country. His call comes in the wake of increased real estate developments in an era where the sector has been marked for growth in investments in the coming years. CEO Bride Owusu-Amofa spoke to Joy Business at the launch of a new Apollonia City development.
The Apollonia City development shall see the construction of 100 homes through a partnership with the country's leading mortgage provider, Ghana Home Loans. Construction of the $1 million project starts in the 3rd quarter of 2017 and is aimed at helping address Ghana's housing deficit. Speaking to Joy Business after the launch of the project at the U.S. Embassy in Accra, the chief executive of Apollonia City, Bride Owusu-Amofa, was of the view that although the project seeks to encourage local participation in the sector, indigenous companies needed to scale up their capacity.
In terms of job creation, we always look into the community first. I am a firm believer in local content, but I always think that we also need to, for instance, empower our local industries to be able to meet some of these projects. Certainly, some of the challenges that the developers have faced in the past is that when you start doing things on a large scale, it becomes difficult for some of the local entities to meet that scale. For instance, if you need 1,000 doors, is there any carpenters or is there any company that can produce that 1,000 doors? So, the point I'm trying to make is while we are all for, using local content, we also need to make sure that we're empowering our local industries to be able to meet that demand.
Dominic Edu is Chief Executive Officer for Ghana Home Loans, and he could not agree more. He added that a stable economy was also necessary to improve mortgage financing in the country.
I think the problem has always been, one, the fact that most loans available on the market are short-term and expensive. But to buy a property, you need a lower interest rate and a longer tenor. I've seen very tangible signs of that happening. I think we've all seen the treasury bill rates coming down from 25-26% to the mid-teens. And so we expect that, and now of course the government has also issued a 15-year bond, which is extremely positive. A combination of lower interest rate and longer tenor would actually address the funding gap for mortgages.
On her part, Deputy Minister for Works and Housing was certain her ministry would ensure housing becomes affordable to the average Ghanaian.
We are hoping and looking at a situation where a one-bedroom apartment can be pegged between $15,000 and $20,000. And a two-bedroom apartment can be pegged between $25,000 and probably $30,000, depending on the facilities that we have, depending on the cost of equity of land, depending on the infrastructure, and depending on the local content that we incorporate into the housing industry. I believe we're able to incorporate about 30, 40, 50% of the local content into the housing industry. We'll be able to bring down the cost of building in this country.
Now, the introduction of the towing levy has started some public debate. People for it, people against it. In fact, most people against it. We have been gauging public sentiments over this. My colleague Charles Aite is somewhere in a crowd with our visibility board. I want you to know what people think about the reintroduced towing levy. Charles, take it away. All right, Charles, if you can hear me, what are people saying about the reintroduced towing levy? Well, I can see Charles, but I doubt he can hear me. So we will try and fix that momentarily and get back to Charles Aite, who is live for us, I believe, at the Osu Oxford Street, asking people what they think about the reintroduced towing levy. While we fix that, I want to move on to our next story. Okay, not quite. We'll take a short break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our program. Now, some economists are asking the Bank of Ghana to quickly, apologies for that, some little technical hitches there. Some economists are asking the Bank of Ghana to quickly step in and fix the issue with troubled banks. I believe my colleague George Rafe has a report on that we can play for you right now.
We must be able to get into a situation where people are assured that they are being given as fair a shake from what the nation has, so that if we're going to all suffer something, we know it is for a just cause. Because if we don't do that, I'm telling you that it will not look good for Ghana.
Another thing that we are hearing is another proposal that has come on board is that deal with the troubled banks. We are hearing that even 2 banks are in a situation right now. There are proposals that go in and liquidate these banks if they cannot recapitalize. I mean, what do you make of this current development, Doc?
Well, bank failure, unfortunately, we've read about banking sector failures, but we have not experienced it. So sometimes we take very light views of this. The way the banking system is, if you don't handle 2, 3 banks properly, and they may bring the whole system down. Now, some of their problems have come again from management or mismanagement of payments. We have these huge contract sums. We don't pay on time. We behave as if it's an option that, well, we will payable when able. You can't do that. You lock in private capital. You are making banks have assets which are non-performing. Now, all these things can bring banks down. So we need to deal with the stability of our banking system.
My colleague George Rafe picking some sentiments from an economist there. Moving on now, we want to try one more time and get in touch with Charles Aite, who is at Osu, gauging the views of people on the reintroduced towing levy. Charles, I want to believe I'm lucky this time. What are people saying?
Well, we have been scouting for views here, as you rightly stated, and diverse views from our, visibility board, which is currently mounted at one of the busiest car parks right here behind the Accra Sports Stadium. And as you could see, one concerned, driver and car owner for that regard, pressing on his very views in that stead. Is a good idea, but the government would have to come and, of course, come up with the best ways of tackling it. And, this very last one is a very interesting one here. The fact that there could be possible demonstrations in the midst of the Parliament, passing this very towing levy. But I have two gentlemen right here to help us understand. They also registered their thoughts right here. And who would want to speak first? I think you would go first. No. All right. So first of all, what exactly did you write? I realized that you wrote the fact that it's a good idea, but government had to look at it in the very best of ways. Why?
Yeah, because it's a good idea, but the government should, government should know the way of taking care of it.
All right, okay. But you also have been sharing with me very pertinent concerns regarding the Tobin levy. And you have stated the facts that I think you wrote yours somewhere here.
It's a very good concept, I should say, but trust me, it makes no sense if I should be driving, maybe let's say an official vehicle, and at the end of the day, I'm going to renew my license and I need to pay the levy for that. It doesn't make sense.
So what are you impressing on government?
Honestly speaking, what I ask for the government to do currently, on my personal opinion, is that the government should look at this whole thing all over again. If possible, the company that has been contracted to do this thing should rather do the towing and charge their money for it.
All right.
Not to impose it onto us, because someone owns about 6-7 vehicles, and at the end of the day, when I'm going to do my renewal, I need to pay on his behalf. Right. And at the end of the day, I don't own even a vehicle, not even talking about a bicycle tire.
All right, so diverse,
it doesn't make sense
diverse views in that very regard, Dara. But, one very interesting point, as I rightly stated, was the fact of there being a possible demonstration by drivers. They have rightly stated it right here. And, of course, it could affect my income, and government should explain this very well. As at now, we have engaged various drivers, and they are just not into this very levy that Parliament recently passed by the Roads and Transport Committee. They are certain the fact that it's way overdue that Parliament would have to relook into this situation if indeed it has the consent of drivers and, of course, men and women in Ghana at heart, Darryl.
Last person you spoke to, very passionate, but he brings up a point that most people raise. I mean, why should I pay for somebody's carelessness? Well, thanks very much indeed, Charles Aite, live for us from Osutha. We are taking a short break. The Joy Business Van is coming up next. Welcome back. Now we want to talk about something very juicy, and in fact the person behind that, Annie Safo, she's making food more attractive to eat with her food carving techniques. Not only is she promoting a healthy lifestyle, she's turned the skill into a business as more people order her food bouquets as gifts. The Joy Business Van is at her home at Lashibi in Accra today. Shopping for fresh fruit has become routine for Annie Safo since she discovered how to carve them. Annie has studied biological science at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, landed a job with a tech firm, then switched to become a biology teacher, and even tried her hand at the makeup business, but all this was not fulfilling for her.
I wanted something different and something new in the system, something challenging and something related to my course. So I decided to go into fruit and vegetable art, which is kind of very new. Probably I'm the only person doing it in Ghana at the moment.
So Annie's next task was to learn food carving techniques. She was lucky. A friend introduced her to a US-based chef who taught her a thing or two. Carving fruit is an art. For someone who never considered herself artistic, this was a tough challenge.
Even when I was in JSS, I was in graphic design. I used to let someone draw for me and all that. I have never ever thought that I could actually do art or anything of that sort.
But Annie got a grip of it, and soon she was displaying her fruit art at social gatherings. People would invite her to just display her artwork. Then it dawned on her she could make fruit bouquets and market them as gifts. She called it Annie's Perfections.
So I have places I buy my fruits. I always want to know the source of the fruits, where it's coming from. I know that quite a lot of times people are like, oh, the fruits, they are not good. There is the way they harvest it or the way they cultivate it and all that. So I always have a source that I go to get my fruits, and I know that it's very good. So when I get the fruits, I have a fridge also dedicated for fruits, just fruits. I keep the fruits inside, and then when I have an order, preferably 4 days before the order is taken, I ask what the person wants written on the bouquet, if it is a bouquet, then I carve it out. So the carving takes about 2 hours, depending on how lengthy the statement or whatever the person wants written on it is.
With the help of social media and by word of mouth, Annie's food bouquets are catching on, especially among people who are conscious about eating healthy.
I don't know how I'm even able to handle sometimes the pressures. So when it comes to occasions like Mother's Day and Father's Day, actually, so Father's Day I didn't even put on any platform that, do you want anything for your dad? I didn't, because the Mother's Day was so bad for me. It was just too much. Too many orders. So for like 2 days I had not slept. Yes.
Carving food, however, comes with its own challenges.
Most of the time I try to make sure that I get the freshest of the fruits that they have, then I come and keep it in my fridge. But even that, after a while, some of them start going bad. Like grapes, though they'll be in the fridge, after about a week or so, they start discoloring or they start going bad. Apples also start becoming yellow. So when it happens like that, it's quite, though it is not spelled, I'm not able to get the green part of it, so I always have to get new ones to replace it. And when it comes to the cutting, it takes some time. It's very challenging. The artwork is challenging, and I always have to make sure that I'm right on point, because if I make a mistake, then it means that the whole thing is going to go waste.
At the heart of all what Annie does is to ensure more people adopt a healthy eating lifestyle, and she's happy she's put her knowledge of biological science into good use. Don't you just want to grab that and just eat it all up? Well, that is it for the Joy Business Fan. Moving on now to our busy bits.
How to change your browser's homepage if you use Internet Explorer. Open the Microsoft Internet Explorer browser. Click Internet Explorer Tools icon in the upper right-hand corner. Select Internet Options from the drop-down menu that appears. Under the General tab, type the URL of the web page you want to set. Click Apply. Click OK. If you'd like the page you've opened set as your home page, click the Use Current button. To see if your new home page has been set correctly, click the home icon.
Welcome back. Let's quickly do our interview for the day. And the PRO of the Association of LPG Marketing Companies, Bernard Donko, is lamenting the loss of jobs if the National Petroleum Authority should proceed with a policy to ban LPG vending stations from refilling gas cylinders. The directive, according to the NPA, is aimed at curbing accidents arising from gas explosions at these filling stations. But Bernard Donko says the policy will worsen the unemployment situation in the country and not necessarily prevent fire disasters.
Interview of the day.
Policy that's, if implemented, will put all of us out of business. I mean all of us. When I say all of us, the tanker drivers, the LPG marketers, those who operate the LPG dispensing outlets, it will put all of us out of business. So the agitations you see going on, we are fighting for dear life. Because if our businesses are collapsed, we just can't, exist.
Okay. So give me details. What does this policy entail?
Well, you see, For over 30 years now, Ghanaians have been served, Ghanaians who use LPG have been served through the dispensing outlets, where what you call the gas filling stations. And the government intended to expand the coverage of LPG users, and ensure that the delivery is done in a safe manner. Well, when we had it, we thought it was good news because that's the business we do. We serve Ghanaians with LPG gas. And in fact, we have been over the years trying to expand our coverage. So we thought, if that is the idea, that is the object of the policy, then we are in good business because we are going to be the implementers of the policy. Then we come to realize that the policy is not going to be implemented through our operations, but rather there's going to be a separate business where gas bottling plants are set up and cylinders will be taken there to be filled, meaning that users of LPG will no longer patronize our outlets. And that is why we thought, listen, we were of the view that if the object of the policy was to ensure that majority of Ghanaians get to use LPG, we are the best people for the policy to be implemented through us because we are in operation. We've been serving Ghanaians for over 30 years. But to bring a new business to phase out our business, it is a serious matter.
Interview of the day.
And that's our show tonight. Thanks very much for watching. Remember, you can always keep up to date on our website, myjoyonline.com/business. You can, of course, read about Apollonia City launching a project to build 100 homes. A very interesting story as we build up to the main Habitat Fair. My name is Darrell Kwao. I'll see you tomorrow.